Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode on the podcast. Today, I want to talk about a topic that I actually touched up on, pause. A topic that I mentioned quite quite majorly in episode 39. So if you guys want to go check that out to get a kind of backstory, which will help you understand a lot more about this new episode coming out now, it's performance anxiety. So something that I've dealt with a lot. Again, you can go check it out in episode 39. It's already uploaded for you guys to have a listen to. So if you want to check that out, just give you a little bit more understanding of what I've gone through in terms of my performance anxiety or my anxiety in general in sports. It'll just help you guys further get a glimpse of and an idea of what's going to happen in this episode and what we're going to talk about. So yeah, I think this is a very frequent mental battle that a lot of athletes face, but it's still not in the picture a lot about men's mental health, especially in sports. So I think I just want to kind of vent out and talk about different aspects of performance anxiety, and we'll go through it now in this episode. But so, like, whether you're stepping onto a field, into a gym, or on like a stage in front of an audience, it's all very intense and uncomfortable feeling, especially before competing for something. A lot of us know it a little bit too well, and especially for myself, it's really something that we openly talk about. So I chose this topic because it's something that I've experienced myself. There have been times when I've trained hard, I've felt physically ready, but the moment the game came around, my mind just got in the way of everything, basically. That fear of, underperforming or letting people down, it is real, right? And it's a tough experience for people to go through. And I myself had to go through this, I guess, traumatic experience that I've now overcome, and I'm ready for myself to talk about it. So in this episode, I want to unpack a few things. So I want to unpack what performance anxiety feels like, why it happens, and some habits and, I guess, strategies that you guys can use if you guys are dealing with this kind of thing. Because I know how to experience it and I know what it feels like, and I've realized now how to deal with it. I want to give that information and those things to you guys to be able to use for yourselves. In the worst case scenario that you guys have to experience this kind of thing yourselves, I want you to be able to use this episode and use the information that I'm giving you to combat against. So, firstly, what does it look like for different athletes? Like, what does it look like in different athletes? Well, for some people, it's physical, right? So, your heart starts to race, you sweat, your arms and your legs feel heavy, or you have a tight chest. And for some, it's more emotional, so, or mental. This can be your overthinking, self doubt, or just overall negative self talk. For me personally, it usually just hits me right before I step onto a field. It never happens in training. It never happens off the field when we talk about a game. I never get like, enclosed and internalized about talking about games. I'm happy. I don't really care talking about the games after it's done. It's always the moment I'm just about to step on the field. When you just leave the change rooms, it all just kind of hits me. For me, it affected me both mentally and physically. So a lot of the time I'll just question if I'm good enough to be there. So like mentally, an example or feelings that I had when this happened to me was, did I train hard enough? What happens if I fuck up? How do I look to everyone? How does everyone look at me when I play? Do I look weird? Am I running weirdly? Does it look weird when I kick or I handball? Is anyone watching me? Like scouts, especially when I was younger. This is a lot of stuff when I was younger, from the ages of like 13 to around 16, even 17 years old. Even last year, it was bad for me. A lot of time, like, it just overcame me so much where I just thought, can I really be bothered playing? And is the mental strain that this is getting me worth me having to go through it? A lot of the time, I just really just felt mentally trapped. Like I felt like I couldn't go anywhere. I didn't feel freedom whenever I played anymore. I'm very doubtful of myself. I wouldn't go in for the hard ball. I wouldn't go tackle that player because what if I missed a tackle? Am I better off missing a tackle than trying to tackle them at all? A lot of doubt came into that, and physically, I would just feel weak in the legs. Like I felt like my legs were jelly. I felt like I was going to sink into the floor. I'll feel lightheaded. Like sometimes got really bad, like high pressure moments. I would feel really lightheaded and feel like I'm about to pass out. I would get overly emotional. If I missed a kick, I would scream, I'd swear, I would just like literally beat myself up about it, or I'd just be completely emotionless. So I wouldn't react. I would just be stone faced. I would be stoic in the worst way possible. I would just become non-verbal basically. I wouldn't talk. Despite me being captain for a few teams, for a fair few teams, I would be very non-verbal after making a single mistake, and I would literally stop trying. So I would start walking after I missed a kick, or I wouldn't go to the next contest. I would just tell them, look, put me full forward. I can't be fucked playing midfield. I'm not going to do anything. And mentally, I wasn't really there. Right. And so I think a lot of these physical reactions come and they stem from all these mental attitudes and suffers, and different thoughts that happen during game for me personally. I just felt like I was just drowning my own thoughts. All my thoughts were just negative. I would never have a positive thought about whether I was playing well or not. And this was especially through when I would play for my representative teams in AFL. So I would play for my region's team. So for my junior footy league, that was the Yarra Junior Football League. So that was the YJFL as we call it. And I would play for them and I'd play in the top side and I would play good games, but every single kick that I did, I would think, shit, I could have hit it a little bit better with my foot, or I could have hit him a little bit better. I could have kicked it out a little bit wider. I was always just so hypercritical that I was just suffocatingly doubtful of my own ability, even though I was able to do these things well. It especially became apparent my performance anxiety. I was lucky enough that in year 11, so when I was 17, my this YJFL team that I play for, I got to play at Marvel Stadium. And for me, this was like a holy shit moment in my life. I still cherish it so much, but in that game, even the lead up to that game, I would just, as soon as I got off the train station and I looked at the stadium, I was like, holy fuck, how am I here? Like, how is this happening? I got a lot of positives and negatives from this opportunity that I had. Like, holy fuck, I got to play on an AFL ground at 17 years old. Like, that is wild. Like, most people in their entire life will never be able to step foot onto on the AFL footy ground in their entire life. And I've been able to do it at 17. Right. But in the lead up to the game, in the change rooms, it was a lot of imposter syndrome. And these suffocating thoughts, I was just thinking, I just do not deserve to be here. Like, what am I doing? Like, how am I about to step on the ground, walking past Collingwood? I remember distinctly, like, after the game was finished, I walked past Steel Sidebottom. Me and one of the other boys that I played with were lost in the ground and we were just walking around. And we saw Steel Sidebottom, an AFL player now for Collingwood, and just gave him a wave and he waved back and they were all just smiling at us and we're just like, holy shit, like, that's an AFL player. But in that game, it was really bad. Like, I was just playing in positions where I've never really played. Like, I've never played in the wing. I was playing on the wing and I'm just like, I don't know what to do. Like, what am I doing? And that just lasted for so long. Like, and I didn't really do much that game. Like, almost kicked a goal from 50 on Marvel until the guy who was actually roaming around with when we saw Stewart Sidebottom, he marked on the line but like I don't care. Like I got a kick on Marvel Stadium. Like that's good enough for me. But yeah, like for me, it just felt so overwhelming. It was all about how I was going to play and how I was going to perform and what people thought of me. And it got to the point where I thought, look, I'm better off playing a really, really shit game and never touching the ball than having an average game where people think, oh, is he like declining his performance? I thought if I was having an average game, people would think, oh, he's getting worse at footy. Whereas if I just didn't touch the ball at all, people would just think, oh, he's injured or he's playing on an injury or he just had one shit game compared to a game where I have like plenty of touches and kick a couple goals. And it was just like, there was so many like thoughts that I had where it just didn't make any sense now that I'm looking back on it. Like, why would I have those thoughts? Like, it really just doesn't make sense to me. And I talk to a lot of my players that I'm coaching at the moment about more of the mental game than strategies and performance and skills. Because I know now that footy is like 80 or 90% mental more than it is about your skills and your physical abilities. Because if you can go out there and completely forget about what you've just done and go in there hard 100% and get the footy again and keep trying and trying all game, you're going to be more praised than for someone who does a few good things a game, but then gets doubtful of themselves. And once they make a mistake, they give up. And then in this episode, when I've been planning, I make sure to give myself some questions, like what questions can I use to kind of get people to think about this and questions that I can reflect on. So one of them being like, where does the pressure come from? Like, is it internal expectations or does it come from coaches, family, teammates, or even like social media? And for me personally, it stemmed a lot from myself. And I was my own biggest critic by far. It wasn't my coaches, it wasn't my teammates, wasn't my brothers, wasn't my mum or my dad, and it wasn't even my teammates. It was me. I'm the worst critic that I could have possibly had. And it was purely because of me that I didn't want to be there and play footy. I was invited to all these different development teams, the YJFL Academy team and Oakley Chargers, which is a Coates Talent League team where it is a representative footy team of different areas within like Victoria and also like different states where they all compete against each other. And I always kept comparing myself to all these invitations that I had and the people that were at these different development teams. I would think, look, was I good enough when I was 13 to play these academy teams? Am I good enough now to play these academy teams? There's a lot of comparison for me, and look, the comparison is the thief of joy, which I've now reflected on and realized that because I was comparing myself to a lot of different players who are not me, it robbed me of knowing my strengths and knowing what I can do and having my own belief in myself. Another big kind of idea and thought that people usually have is like, does performance anxiety ever help performance? Because it does give us adrenaline, but I think it mostly focuses on the negative things. For me, it really hurt me, performance anxiety. Like, it was a lot because I didn't know that it was just my adrenaline increasing. That's a lot of what it was. It was just my adrenaline and cortisol in my body, cortisol being a stress hormone, increasing in my body. And instead of using it to my own advantage, I perceived it as a threat and it became consumed by it. I became consumed by it. I would just drown in all these ideas and thoughts that I had, and I wasn't able to get out for a breath of air. I was just suffocating the entire time, and it completely hindered my performance. And a lot of players they go through the same kind of processes that I would go through with performance anxiety. They would be in the change rooms about 10, 15 minutes before they go out. Their heart would start racing, their body temperature would increase, their palms would start getting really sweaty. And some players go, fuck yeah, okay, I'm ready to get out there. I'm ready to play footy. Whereas I was like, fuck, what's going on with me? What is happening? Like, this is not normal. Why am I feeling like this? This is too scary. Like, I don't want to experience this stuff. And I guess now for me that I understand this is just how my body reacts to these scenarios and kind of the whole chemical and neurological reactions that happen in my body when these situations come along. It's comforting that I now know that, right? Because back then I had no idea. Like now I love knowing about the body and how it works. And I think this is the main reason why I've become so accepting of how things happen. Like when I become stressed, I'm like, okay, this is a good thing for me. I know how to control this. But back then I had no idea what to do and how to control it. And I didn't think that anyone else knew what I was going through. I thought I was by myself the entire time. I didn't know who to talk to about it because I thought it was just a new thing that happened. I didn't think anyone else would know how to help me. I felt so fucking trapped. I had no idea what to do. But now I know that in these situations, this is just how my body responds to these different things. And I can now use it to my advantage. I now am comfortable with these different scenarios. And because it's been training a lot recently about men's mental health, I think a big question that a lot of different organizations, clubs, and teams and teammates can think about is how can these people, how can coaches, how can teammates, how can clubs create safer environments where athletes feel supported instead of being judged? I think that you just need to fucking rip the band-aid off and address it. I think we need clubs, like AFL clubs obviously have psychologists. They have people there to talk to players about it, right? I think it suffers a lot more in local footy, especially local footy where you're playing at the high do of local footy, but you're not good enough to play VFL or AFL. These players, you have so many players where they think, I want to keep going with this. I want to try and play better. I want to try and make something out of my whole footy career, right? And I think we need to have more chats about this because I think it's such a normal thing that happens, but it's perceived as abnormal because nobody talks about it. So I think the best way that we can make this more of a comfortable thing for clubs and players to experience is it would be great to have AFL players come into every club and talk about it, but that's just not the reality. We can't do that. A lot of clubs can't afford to do that because they would have to pay them, right? But I think by having a highly respected player within that club talk about it in front of everyone, it will impact everybody so positively because it makes it more normal. Like, I guess a big player at my footy club, if I saw him go up and talk about how he hated to play every single game for 4 years of his life when he was younger because he was going to be judged and he had performance anxiety, I would respect that so highly and it would make me more adherent and more focused and accepting of seeing my teammates in those situations and being able to handle it and being able to comfort them. I think that's something that we need to do more to normalize this feeling. And so lastly, two comp strategies that I know will work, that I know have worked for me, and that I think that you guys will be able to use it yourselves if you unfortunately have to go through the same thing. So the first one, and it is so cliche, it's the same thing with mental health, it's the same thing with anxiety. All psychologists, if you go through a session, is to literally just talk about it. Sometimes you don't even have to talk about it to someone. And I understand it's so difficult to do and it's so uncomfortable to talk about. You just feel so vulnerable whenever you bring it up, or if you bring it up ever. You think that everyone is just going to use it against you. You sometimes you feel that you don't want this to be your excuse because you are in denial of how this can actually hinder your performance. Start by telling your parents, like start by telling your mum or your dad. Personally, I think it's completely up to you guys whether you do it or not. But I think it's best to tell whichever parent is most consistently present at your games, whoever's there most of the time. And if it's both of them, then tell both of them at the same time. And something that I wish I had when I told my parents, if you don't know what to say, then use a prompt like this. Look, mum or dad, whoever, or both mum and dad, can I just talk to you about something? And this immediately is going to make you feel so vulnerable and literally feels like you're in open arms asking someone to shoot you. That's how it feels, right? But all this does is it just shows the person or people that you're telling that what you're talking about is serious. And so you go, mum, dad, can I just talk to you about something? And before I start, I don't need you to give me advice or questions. I just want you to listen. Just give me 5 minutes to talk. And then you go, I think I've been suffering from anxiety, and it always happens whenever I play. And after you tell them this and you go on about how you feel, how it makes you feel, how long it's been going on for, as much detail as you can. Because I'm sure if you go into depth and you say, can you give me 2 minutes? You talk for 10, you talk for 15, you talk for 20 minutes. And you go on and you give them everything that they need to know. And after you tell them about how you feel about playing, what it feels like whenever your anxiety actually kicks in during a game, just explain it the best that you can. And then once you're done, let them respond. Be like, okay, I'm done. No, you guys can go ahead. You guys can talk now. They will usually never ask questions. They will never question you. They will never put you down about it. They will never despise these kind of thoughts. They will usually ask you, what can we do to help? And the same thing happened with my mom and dad. They said, do you need to see a psychologist? And that was probably the best thing that could have happened to me. And that brings me to my next point, and my next strategy is to seek help. Right? These two things, they go hand in hand. Talking about it is technically you seeking help, but they can feel like two different things. This doesn't mean you have to see a sports psychologist, although I think it's the best possible thing that you can do because they're professionals. They've been dealing with these things for years usually, and it's so unbelievably helpful. You can even just sit there and talk to your mates instead. Or I've done this before, and trust me, it is a lot harder. Prop your phone up and talk about everything. When you're home alone and there's no one around, prop your phone up, record yourself, and talk about it. Listen back to it. Does it make sense? How would you respond to someone telling you this? And literally just being able to vent out about it, it gets all of your emotions out, and you make yourself feel so much better about it after you're done. And talking to your mates about it instead of the sports psychologist might just be the best thing for you and your friendship with that mate. For me, the worst part about it is that I just felt no one knew what I was going through. Like I said before, it's the same thing with mental health. You feel like you're the only one who feels this pain or knows this kind of experience, but you go and talk to the happiest guy you know, and you might even ask him, like, have you ever gone through something like this? And they will be like, yeah, I have, 100%. When you tell someone like your best mate, it'll actually bring you guys closer together because you give them the luxury of being able to help you when you're going through the shit. And then once they prove to you that they are reliable and they are trustworthy to keep your information and hold it to themselves, it makes you realize that there are people out there that want to help you and that want to make you feel better. So that brings us to the end of this episode. I hope you guys all enjoyed. Again, if you want to get more in depth of my own experience about this, check out episode 39. That is out on Spotify and YouTube for you guys to listen to or watch. And I'll see you guys in the next episode.